Hey guys, I'm Michael from eKids, and I want to talk about trust like we've been talking about all month. And we've been also learning about the story of Jacob and Joseph. Now, here, we've already learned that Joseph has this crazy story, right? Where he's got this coat of many colors. He's his father's favorite son, but then his brothers go put him down in a hole and sell him to slavery. So he becomes a slave, and then he becomes a prisoner, and things are looking pretty bad for Joseph, as far as we know from the last time that we taught your kids. Now, this week, things begin to look up for Joseph because, yes, he's given these dream interpretations to his buddies that we learned about last week. And yes, it seems like his buddies forgot about him. But Pharaoh ends up having a dream too. And he's looking for someone to just help him out and interpret this dream. So, of course, Joseph shows up. I got it. And he goes ahead and interprets these dreams. And so he tells Pharaoh that what's going to happen is there's going to be a famine in the land for 7 years, but that's going to be preceded by 7 years of plenty. So what he recommends to Pharaoh that he saves all the grain for 7 years, so when there's a famine, they're good to go. And so he recommends to Pharaoh, you know what, dude, you should probably have someone pretty wise manage all this stuff. And Pharaoh goes, how about you? So Joseph goes from in a hole to slavery to prison to being like this big dude in charge in Egypt. In fact, he'd be like the equivalent to like a vice president. He was number 2 behind Pharaoh himself, managing all these things in Egypt. How crazy of a story is that? And so with our theme of trust, this is easy to tell children, right? To say, we should trust God like Joseph trusted God because things went well for Joseph because he trusted God, right? But see, there's trouble with this because not every story ends like Joseph's story. And Joseph's story will get even better that we'll find out next week. But not every story ends this way. Sometimes your story, after trusting God for years, ends up with death. Sometimes your story of trusting God for years ends up with terrible pain. So what do we do with that when our story doesn't line up like Joseph's story? Well, I want you to think about Abraham for just a moment. Abraham, of course, is Joseph's grandpa. God promises Abraham that he's going to make a nation out of him. But what does Abraham actually see? He's got one son that he had from a handmaiden, and he's got another son, Isaac, that is like the promised son. Now, when Abraham dies, he doesn't see this great big tribe of Israel. He doesn't see his seed as like the sands of the ocean or the stars in the sky. He doesn't see those promises fulfilled that way. But we do. We see after Abraham all these awesome things that begin to happen. And we see that the story of Jesus, and it all starts with Abraham, right? We see these things now in hindsight. But Abraham didn't see these things in his lifetime. All he saw was that he had a couple sons and some grandkids. So my challenge to you is, if your life does not end up like Joseph's, if you don't end up being the vice president, and if your trusting in God feels like it's a waste, remember that your story continues even after you're gone. And more than that, your story continues in heaven. You know what? I have a feeling that after a couple billion years in heaven, some of these struggles that we deal with will feel like that. So look at the big picture. Look at things after you're gone. Look at things in the afterlife. And you know what? Trust God. He's going to do the right things. And it's going to be okay. But it just might not be okay right now. It might be okay in a billion years. Anyway, guys, that's a little bit about what we teach your kids and a lot more of things I have for you. But I love you, and I hope you have an awesome week. We'll see you next time. Bye.